Alright, share a little story that I've been getting bits and pieces of for a while now, and it's an interesting story where they're basically talking about, the return and, him attacking us and stuff, which we know that isn't quite right. But, when you figure out what this guy's talking about, it makes more sense when you look at it from his point of view. So, back to the story, just trying to figure out, put a name to the guy's face and, kind of do a background and see what's going on. But if you're new, I know a couple of my previous attempts got deleted. So if you're interested in listening to the story, you might want to tape it if you want to pass it along to anybody else you think would be interested in it. What it comes down to is he's talking about, February being a bad month. What he's basically saying is that, for the story of Christ attacking us doesn't really sound right, but when you think about it, what the guy's saying is basically he's got court coming up in February where he got into a deep state trap, and you would wonder, why would Christ even be in court? Well, apparently he's defending himself with the aftermath of one of these events that had started, and what it came down to is that he knows he's in a courtroom. He's surrounded by hostiles. He knows the system is corrupt. The lawyers are corrupt. The judges are corrupt. And he knows there's just no way to win. So when they basically go after him with everything they got, karma apparently is going to spin that out. And he's going to come after us with all he's got. And what that comes down to is, that's karma all the way. So if it looks like it's going to be a major event, basically what he's saying is, there's nothing anybody can do to stop it but to, prepare for this and kind of get off the ring of fire, because there's a couple places that are weak in trying to understand all that. I heard some of the statements about, what he was talking about with how the planet works and that we've been lied to for so long. It ain't funny, but go back to the story of the date. Basically, he's saying the 5th, 6th, and 7th, he calls it the 3 days of darkness, and doesn't sound, sort of the way he explains it. He wants you to get prepared. He wants you to get out of the way, and it's basically all he's saying is just get prepared for this. Oop, hold on. Sorry about that. What he's basically saying is that the event itself and how to prepare for it, and just trying to find a name to go with the face probably be a good idea to backtrack, see if the guy's got a criminal record or just something that'll just debunk the whole thing, so you don't have to worry about what he's got to say. But basically he's saying the business itself, the situation he just can't get out of. He's been jumping from limb to limb trying to get out of it, but he knows from his past that every time an event like this happens, you go back to 3/11 and realize that apparently there was paperwork dropped off and all hell broke loose. So you can kind of take that as one particular incident, but he's saying basically if you start backtracking through everything, you're going to realize that it's more than one coincidence. And he's saying the next one and the next one and the next one, and 50 to 60, 70 coincidences later, you kind of get the idea that he's ran out of limbs to jump to keep this from turning into a major event. So back to the event itself. What it comes down to is, while he was talking about the event, he said, there's no reason to really to be scared about it. Just prepare for Santa to come crashing in, because it looks like it's going to be more than he can handle when he gets to court. And even about the idea of making it for the whole 3 days, he's kind of figuring that what happened last time is, he got there for an hour, found out that his own lawyer threw him under the bus, and he gets into court, and the judge is looking at him going, did you really throw your guy under the bus? And his own lawyer's going, yeah, I did. And it's like, you didn't tell him anything about what you were going to do when you walked in here? And he's like, nope, didn't say a word. And then, of course, he turned around and called the board about the fact that his lawyer just destroyed him. And they turn around and says, yeah, he's allowed to do that, get over it, enjoy the rest of your life. And that was it. It's like, holy crap. So the more he ventured into this mess and realized how seriously corrupt everything was. He knows there's no way to win, and there's no way of getting out of this. This little chain reaction has started, and the degree of things that are going to hit the fan is going to be questionable because he really doesn't know how to control an emotion. I mean, once you poke him enough, like any American, you poke him one too many times, and he's going to go off. So that becomes the story of, what this is all about. So we'll go back to the event itself. Basically, it was mentioned in the business itself. Apparently ended up in an eminent domain, and everything got really complicated from there. So we get a name to the face. You could probably easily research, find out, what the name of the place is. He says if you get the wrong name to the face, a couple of poor buggers out there that look like him, he says, the clues were already put in place. They're pretty straightforward. The clue was fish. So what he said was, if you find a name, you start tracking it down, and his business turns out to be a fish. His name turns out to be a fish. The scarab turns out to be a fish. The magnum turns out to be a fish. And it turns out that, his black-haired dog is a dog, not a bear. She's a dog. You'll get the idea that, things aren't always exactly the way they seem. But let's get back to the event itself. Apparently, he says that, looking at what he knows now, if someone else had become president, he probably never would have got his message out. And then trying to prepare and tell people that, you really don't need to be scared, but you really need to get out of the way, and you really need to be prepared for, a crash landing. It's going to happen. The question is, how bad is it going to be? So what it came down to is that he was making it pretty simple. It's like he wants you to do something for him first that he needs you to do, and it will enable him and help him be able to finish his promise that he made. And it's a pretty simple request. He wants you to get out of the way, and he wants you to get prepared. He doesn't want you to run around in circles and, act like you don't know what you're doing, because the reality is you need to be calm and put your thoughts together and, get a kit ready for, the power to go out and things to get really, really hostile environment style for a little while. But he says it's not like, he can control what's going on. He can keep his temper in check within a certain limit, but it depends on how people react and if they do the right thing. I mean, a lot of people out there aren't going to move no matter what happens because they've already gone through this before, and they're not moving because they don't believe a damn thing. Well, what you're basically saying is that, you're giving the wrong message. You really need to, care about the fact that he wants you to survive, and hold that thought for a minute. Sorry about that. And basically, he wants you to survive, wants you to get out of the way, do what it is you need to do to survive. And comes back to that old story where, you're not going to help yourself. He doesn't really want to help you if you're not going to help yourself. So you got to keep that in mind while this is all unfolding. Now, what he basically said was, don't think about waiting until the 5th and, seeing if anything happens. He says, you really need to move, because the last time he was in Annapolis when all this happened, it was the old story where big old halo kind of encircled the county, and he was keeping an eye on it. He knew it wasn't nothing good. And it's back to that, he knew at that point that he could walk away, and he didn't let it get any farther because he had the ability to walk away, to be able to just get past it. And he's kind of figuring that, from what I remember, it's just, if he got stuck there and he couldn't walk away, there might not have been an Annapolis. So he's kind of making it clear. It's like, you need to do a little research, figure out if the guy is real. He's made comments about, looking up the Chair's family line and following that around, but the way things have been arranged, looks like you're really not going to find him that easily in that from that path. But he says you can follow it back from before then after. So got that old story where, you know, not very often it's worth really digging into somebody's life and finding out if they're the real thing or not. But this might be one of those times where you really need to put a name to a face, do the background, and you find out what the name of the business is, and then start looking for things that happen that, you know, correspond to virtually every event that's happened so far. Might tell you more than we want to know, but at least you'll have an idea that it's worth listening to him, and see how that goes. Take care.